If you love Little Giants, thank Steven Spielberg's bladder. Little Giants turns 30 years old this week, so here are some things I am sure you never knew about it. The story behind Little Giants starts at the legendary advertising agency Leo Burnett in 1992. McDonald's had purchased a 90-second Super Bowl ad slot that year and tapped the agency to make its commercial. Jim Ferguson and Bob Shallcross were on the McDonald's account at the time, and so they started brainstorming. So as Shallcross told ESPN in 2019, he was riding the train home one day in Chicago and spotted some kids playing Pee Wee football out the window, which gave him a eureka moment. What about a more heartwarming Super Bowl ad about kids playing football? Shallcross brought the idea to Ferguson, who prior to working in advertising covered high school sports for a local newspaper in Lubbock, Texas. He liked it, and so they got to work writing and producing the ad. Shallcross said having 90 seconds allowed them to tell a more full story. The commercial premiered during the first quarter of Super Bowl 26 on January 26, 1992. 79.6 million people watched that game, and among them was Steven Spielberg. It's a good thing that Spielberg didn't have to go to the bathroom during that ad break, because he was really taken by the commercial and immediately thought it could be a movie. So much so that he had his assistant track down Ferguson and Shallcross ASAP. So the ad men get into work on Monday morning, January 27th, 1992, and they've got a message from their secretary. Steven Spielberg called. He wants to talk to you. At first they thought it was a joke, but the callback number came with a California area code, so they called back and spoke to Amblin producer Deb Newmeyer. She told them Steven loved the commercial and wanted to make it into a movie. He allegedly said he wanted this to be his Home Alone. So Jim and Bob have a series of meetings with Spielberg, both over the phone and in person in LA. They came armed with a number of ideas for a movie about Pee Wee football, but explained to the director that they had never written a screenplay before. He told them, if you could do this in 90 seconds, imagine what you could do in 90 minutes. But he was hesitant to let them write the screenplay. In one meeting, he asked WB exec Lucy Fisher if they should let Ferguson and Shallcross help write the screenplay, but Fisher said the ad men should just do it themselves. So Spielberg gave them a 1-hour screenwriting lesson and a how to write a screenplay book and sent them off to write the first draft. Over the course of a year, Ferguson and Shallcross worked full-time at Leo Burnett during the day and wrote their Pee Wee football movie at night. It was originally called A Perfect Season and focused on two very competitive middle-aged brothers with opposing kids' football teams named after Notre Dame and USC. In the meantime, Amblin set up the movie at Warner Brothers and hired Dwayne Dunham to direct. Dunham was primarily an editor, but had recently directed a few episodes of Twin Peaks and Homeward Bound. Dunham liked the Midwest sensibilities Ferguson and Shallcross brought to their screenplay, but he thought it wasn't adding up. Other sources also say the studio flat out didn't like the script. So Dunham came up with the idea to make one of the teams underdogs, like a band of losers a la Bad News Bears. And he claims that the character of Becky Icebox O'Shea was based on his daughter, who was a strong athlete. Then in early 1994, Cool Runnings writers Tommy Swerdlow and Michael Goldberg were brought in to rewrite the script. Schindler's List and Jurassic Park earned a combined 15 nominations and 4 wins at the 1994 Oscars. But according to Swerdlow, producer Steven Spielberg was there at a Little Giants story meeting at 9 a.m. the next day. Ferguson and Shallcross came up with the name The Annexation of Puerto Rico for the famous play in the movie, but they didn't actually describe the play in the script. Instead, it was Dunham and storyboard artist Fred Lucky who diagrammed out all of the football action in the movie. In the end, Ferguson, Shallcross, Swerdlow, and Goldberg share writing credits on the film. So after 2+ years of writing and development, in May of 1994, the NFL got involved with the movie. The league apparently wanted to reach more kids at the time and had funding to do it, so they helped co-finance the film, which is why the teams in the movie are called the Giants and Cowboys, and why there are a number of NFL star cameos, and why the movie ended up with the title Little Giants. But this deal with the NFL came with a trade-off. They wanted the movie in theaters fast. So Warner Brothers promised an October release date, meaning the movie had to be cast, shot, and edited in about 5 months. For the top dog brother, Craig T. Nelson was offered the part first, but turned it down because he was already playing a coach on the sitcom Coach. Phil Hartman was considered at one point before it went to Ed O'Neill. Ed O'Neill agreed to do the movie so that his daughters could watch him in something. And the actor actually played football in college and was signed to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1969, but got cut during training camp. Dunham's one acting note for O'Neill was play it like Mike Ditka. The other brother was offered to Bob Saget first, but he turned it down because he was busy with a TV movie, Full House, and America's Funniest Home Videos. Daniel Stern was also considered before it went to Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis' character was originally written to be a widower, but when Moranis came on board, out of respect to him, they made it that his character's wife left him because in real life, Moranis' wife had passed away in 1991. Dwayne Dunham and casting director Janet Hershenson held a nationwide casting search to find real kids. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was originally considered for the role of Junior, but Spielberg apparently didn't like him. Then Jonathan Buck was cast in the part and actually shot for several weeks weeks, but according to Devon Sawa, things weren't working out with Buck, so Sawa, who had just finished shooting Casper, was brought in instead on Spielberg's recommendation. Devon Sawa was 15 years old at the time, which writer Jim Ferguson thought was too old to play the part, and he recalls that in one shot they had him sit while the other kids were standing because he was so much taller than all the other kids. And the casting director says that Shauna Waldron was her first choice for Icebox. Waldron recalls that she was a lot like her character growing up, always, quote, building forts, roughhousing, and wanting to play basketball with the boys. Cameos in the movie include John Mannon, Steve Entman, Bruce Smith, Emmett Smith, and Tim Brown. So Amblin, Warner Brothers, and the NFL set up Dunham with a $20 million production budget. Little Giants filmed in California in the summer of 1994, and it was not without issues. Writer Tommy Swerdlow told ESPN, "It's amazing the movie is as beloved as it is because it looked like it was going to be a train wreck of massive proportions." Because director Dwayne Dunham was previously an editor, he apparently was very meticulous about his shots, and that led to a lot of delays. Shauna Waldron says one scene took Dunham 4 days, and that Spielberg had to come down and show him how to direct on time. Swerdlow says Dunham's mismanagement would have got him fired off of any other production, but Spielberg didn't fire Dunham because he was a director himself and didn't want to fire his directors. That said, it's been reported that Bryant Levant helped direct some of the movie. Waldron said it was very hot that summer and that she actually passed out from heat stroke on set one day. She told ESPN that no one listened to her concerns, but after she fainted, they were much more accommodating and careful. Actor Todd Bosley broke his wrist playing soccer a week before filming Wrapped, and they had to cover his cast with long sleeves. And Ed O'Neill was supposed to have wrapped production on Little Giants before Married with Children returned to shoot its next season, but because of delays, O'Neill had to film the last few weeks of the movie and his sitcom at the same time. But in the end, Waldron and Sawa recall having a lot of fun making the movie. Oh, and the Alka-Seltzer foam in the film was toothpaste. Dunham then edited the movie quickly as summer turned to fall, finishing the film by October. Little Giants hit theaters on October 14th, 1994. It made $5.6 million opening weekend, far behind the weekend's winner, Pulp Fiction, but above The Shawshank Redemption. Little Giants went on to gross $19.3 million total, falling just short of recouping its budget. Critics were mixed on the movie. Today, 50% of the 14 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive, but through home video and cable TV airings, Little Giants caught on with a generation of young people, and if you're this deep into the video, you might be one of them. There were plans to make a sequel, but it never happened, and yet Little Giants' legacy remains. In a 2010 NCAA football game, Michigan State beat Notre Dame with a fake field goal touchdown pass in overtime. Head coach Mark D'Antonio said the play was called Little Giants. The Carolina Panthers ran the play in 2011, and then ironically, it was banned from Pee Wee and Pop Warner football. And from 2004 to 2009, the actual New York Giants wore red jerseys with white lettering like those in the movie. Jim Ferguson doesn't have any other Hollywood credits and went back to his very successful advertising career. Bob Shallcross wrote and directed 2 family-friendly films in the early 2000s. Director Dwayne Dunham went on to direct a number of Disney Channel original movies like Halloween Town and Right on Track. Shauna Waldron is still acting part-time, but works primarily as an antiques dealer. Today, she's proud of Little Giants, saying, "I think the message was really strong with little girls, and it really means a lot to me when I hear things from people that it affected them. If that's the one thing that this movie does, man, that makes me really happy."